What's going on, everybody? It's me back again for another video, and we are getting back into it with another week of tarot and tarot readings, and we are starting off with our regular Monday reading. How are you guys doing today? What's going on? What's the vibe? What's the energy like where you're at? How have things been going? How was your weekend? Feel free to answer down below in the comments if you want to interact or ask me any questions about the reading or any clarifying, or maybe just tell me how this resonated with you. It's been a pretty calm weekend here for me. It's been pretty stormy actually, so there's been a lot of staying inside and doing indoor activities, drinking coffee inside, reading books, having the windows open when we can when it's not raining, and just kind of letting that air flow through and circulate. I always think that's a really great energy cleanser when you could just like open up all the windows in your house or apartment or wherever you are and just let the air flow through and just visualize that energy. I like to imagine kind of energy tunnels forming between the windows and just letting it sweep out all of the negative energy and just create this sort of flowing air energy current that just really lightens up the mood and really just freshens up the house. So yeah, that's the vibe from where I'm coming from. But yeah, let's get into the reading. We're going to do our basic standard 3-card Monday reading. I'm just going to kind of pull randomly from the deck. Sometimes I count, sometimes I don't, but I just kind of shuffle until I feel a card that I like, until I feel called to stop, basically. That's just what I normally do for readings, unless I'm called to do otherwise. But yeah, that being said, let's get into the first card, just kind of the energy we're going into for the beginning of this week, late into the weekend, early Monday, just the starting flow. How are we starting? First card of the week. What are the vibes? Okay, pretty good. Very, very good. I'm actually getting some really positive energy in terms of communication and building community, and I've been seeing this in my own life, specifically over this past weekend, with just a lot of professional outreach, professional development, getting in contact with people in your social life that you hadn't talked to, maybe a little bit of potential for romantic involvement, even if it doesn't lead to anything long-term, just kind of these short-term flings or just a short-term height in sociability and connection, whatever that looks like. I've really seen it across the board, and I was thinking about that earlier today, just like, wow, this was a really great weekend for that kind of, like I've been in contact with a lot of really interesting people over the past week, but I didn't really chalk that up to the energy until I pulled this card right here that has to do with a lot of like emotional connection and socialization, to where I realized like, this actually was the energy. This is very not really prescient because it already happened, but it's a very apt description of the energy that I've been feeling, and hopefully you guys are kind of resonating that too. Maybe you had found some social connections, or you reached out to people you didn't think were going to respond, or you knew they would respond but you thought it would take a while and you thought it would be a pain, but then they responded quickly and it's not going to be that big of a deal. So that's kind of the energy we're going into, this smooth communication, this coming together as a community, even if it's not people necessarily in your direct vicinity, but just kind of this idea of the greater community, like the human race, people interacting with other people, regardless of whether it's in your work life, your romantic life, your family life, social media, reaching out, maybe DM somebody you don't think would respond, and who knows, maybe they'll give you a response, or maybe they'll say something. I know that's happened to me before, where I've DM'd people that I just thought they have these big followings and they would never notice an account that I have created, and then they respond. So I've been kind of feeling that energy lately. So this is definitely time to kind of take a risk and reach out to people maybe you think normally wouldn't respond, because who knows, you might get something back. So yeah, that's how we are. Those are the vibes going in from the weekend, going into Monday. So hopefully you can channel that into some professional work if you are going in Monday. Maybe you've been putting off sending an email to someone because you're not sure you're going to like the response you get. This could be there could be some energy behind that. There could be some positive forces coinciding with your intention. So if you time it right, then that could be a really promising and positive experience for you. So maybe stop putting off that email. Maybe this is the week to ask for a raise. I don't know. It's up to you, but I think the energy's there to definitely support that. All right, let's get into the second card. Where are things going? What are maybe some potential challenges or obstacles, or just maybe even positive, just kind of like an events card, things going forward. What can we expect, I guess? Okay, here's a card I actually haven't seen in a while. I feel like sometimes I pull a lot of the same cards, even on these readings in my own personal readings, so I always get kind of excited when I'm like, oh, I don't think I've pulled this card in like months. That's so interesting. All right, so here we have going into balance. We have this really strong, we're getting these very low numbered cards, so that can do with a lot of like basis, forming new connections, new communications, and the twos often have to do with balance. It's kind of, the threes have to do with community, and twos a lot of times have to do with individual connections. It's partnership, it's pairing. A lot of, as opposed to like the cup cards, the emotion, and then the swords having to do with more like the ideas that you're having and maybe an intellectual pairing. Earth can have the pentacles. Earth can have a lot to do with obviously your finances, your material. It could have to do with specific tasks, things you need to get done in the physical world. So you could feel that there's this sense of balancing your options or weighing what's going forward. This could be alluding to a potential choice that you're going to be having to make it. I'm trying to think of how that's connecting with the potential bonds that you are forming socially and how you can use this energy, the potential obstacles. When I move through these cards sort of chronologically, I like to try to make connections to how it would be easiest for the client to take the energy, like especially when you start off on this really like positive, strong energy, how you can kind of use that as a tidal wave to just kind of like, here's your obstacle, and you're just kind of riding that wave and it just goes like right over. So I'm seeing that with the Three of Cups. You're taking this social element and kind of moving forward into the potential need to be balancing or looking at your finances. This can often also be seen as like a budgeting card, like having to do with balancing the numbers. So my advice to you, given the energy going into this week, into the potential of facing a pentacleian, if you want to call it that, obstacle with this this balancing, this juggling, is to really try to involve the people in your life that you're feeling the strong social connection, even if that just means asking basic advice from someone you've connected with. This could also having to do with reaching out to someone who you don't, maybe it is like a big financial money influencer who you're like, oh, they'll never respond, but you have a very specific question regarding your finances, and you're like, maybe I'll DM them, maybe they'll answer the question. I can go up on like their YouTube channel or their Instagram, or they're doing like a Q&A or something. That could be a really interesting outcome, going for some kind of like a free consultation, or just way in which you can interact with somebody who has more knowledge over this very specific thing. It can also have to do with more like more coming into your life, like you're feeling like there's maybe more money flowing in, or more options, or even just more like things, more physical things that you're starting to feel like your hands are full. I don't know that you're at the place where you're fully like overwhelmed, because at the end of the day he is balancing this, but there's only two. It's not like he has like 15 balls in the air, but they're pretty substantially sized. He definitely has his hands full, so definitely say that you have your hands full with this energy, and it could lead to a bit of tension. But again, my advice to you is to harken back to that energy you have and just kind of try to ride that tidal wave. How can you use positive elements of communication and this strengthened, heightened communication at this time to move forward with any potential obstacles that you're facing this week? That would be my advice for you. All right, we are going to pull one last card. This is a pretty smooth reading. I think I have faith that this is going to be a relatively benign beginning to your week with the potential for some positive outcomes, positive connections. So I think we have some stuff to look forward to. Excuse me. Okay. All right. And then now we have another very low numbered card. Is the Ace of Pentacles. Interesting. So this is it's interesting because normally you talk about in moving with a chronological reading, it's very easy to dissect when you're going with the natural flow of the suit. Like you're moving up in the numbers as it's kind of intended because that tells its own story, but then you're reversing in the numbers but moving chronologically forward, and it kind of acts as this deconstruction of the cards. And it's interesting because it's not moving backwards because you are moving chronologically forward, but I urge you, if you're studying tarot, to spend some time thinking about the way in which the like storyline of the different suits are applicable, both moving up in number but then also counting down in number, because they really tell a story both ways. And that's something you might encounter readings with the clients is, oh, you're doing like a time reading and you get a Nine of Swords and then a Six of Swords and then a Two of Swords. How does it look like to deconstruct the story of the various suits? I think that's something to look forward. So we are going from the Two of Pentacles and then moving forward down to the One of Pentacles. So I think it's breaking this down, and that's going to be my final little bit of advice from moving with the social elements of the water cards to maneuver over more easily these very tangible, potentially financial obstacles you see in the Pentacle cards moving into the week. And then the final advice for you is to be breaking that down, deconstructing the story that you are telling yourself about what these obstacles mean, because you do have these two Pentacles. You are trying to balance something, and what might behoove you as you are moving forward is to deconstruct that and look at these two things as entirely separate problems. You're attempting to balance these two things. Look at the duality. You're looking at the yin, you're looking at the yang. How can I get the best of both worlds? And that's definitely an admirable goal that you want to be moving towards, but I'm sensing that if you want to get the most out of the obstacle that you're facing, let's say, just for an example, say you have the potential to be getting a new job, but that new job would come with a lot of hours. So you're looking at this way in which you can balance the positives of the professional life with the negatives of your social life. You have less time and you're trying to balance these two things. So my advice would be to move forward going into this is to take a day and just look at the elements of the job. If you're trying to look at these two things and hold them in tandem, it's just going to like confuse your brain and mix up all these positives and negatives, and you're just going to exhaust yourself, when really you need to take some time to look at the individual elements without trying to contrast them. What are the positive and negatives of the jobs specifically, not trying to balance it out with like, oh, the family life, the blah, 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 blah. What does it look like when you are there, pretending you're at your job and like at this new job, and it's the only thing that exists while you are there? What are you feeling? What are the positive and negatives of being in this specific environment? Like, break that down. And then at a later time, maybe the next day, or maybe even later that day, just like when you've had some time to like rest on it, take a nap, sleep on it if you can, then later look at your social life. Or maybe your family life, if you have children or like a serious romantic partner. What does that look like when I am here? How can I affect this? How is this changing? If I'm in this space with this limited amount of time, what does that look like for me? What do I have time to do? What am I potentially going to have to sacrifice? How can we move forward from here, and how can I make the most of this different aspect? And then have a very clear vision going forward of what these two things look like separately before you then go backwards and attempt to balance that out. See how it's not always worth it. Sometimes you're kind of starting at not the basics, like you're making a lot of assumptions, and you need to be breaking down these assumptions. So there can be, again, when you're looking at the tarot, there can be a lot to gain by looking at these cards as you break them down through the suit, as opposed to building up, not really building up, but just kind of like moving in the basic expected energy of moving up numerically in the cards. But there can be a lot of helpful advice in breaking down your problems. So that's what I'm going to see you're getting a lot of help from just at the beginning of this week, or just kind of like this week as a whole moving forward. But yeah, I think that's it for the Monday reading. That was a lot, but I felt that was a pretty smooth reading. The energies really just kind of flowed from one to the other. So that starting off with that Cups energy, I know I always feel a very specific kind of resonance with the flow of that water energy moving forward, especially when you get rockier later in the week with a lot of like Pentacle cards. It's nice to start out with that kind of like smooth sailing, so that way later when it gets a little choppier, you have that momentum going. So yeah, That's it for the Monday reading. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked the video. Give it a like if you did. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'm really looking forward to if anyone wants to leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know how these energies resonated with you or any helpful advice for the community moving forward, and I will see you guys for the Wednesday reading. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good one. Bye.